Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. I'm Caesar Carino, your host, and today we have a very special treat. We have all 5 of the Golz children, G-O-L-Z children, and they're all living and they're all in wonderful health, and we're so pleased to have them. We are going to have them introduce themselves because there are so many of them, and I know who they are, but they'll be able to tell you their names. So let's start with the oldest, the 86-year-old one.
Oh, my name is Lucille Sonnenstein.
Lucille Sonnenstein. When were you born, Lucille?
1914.
1914. What day? What day?
June 23rd.
June 23rd. And your mother and father, you can tell us all of that, then they'll all have the same mothers and fathers, won't they?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And who are your mother and father?
Florence Golz and Leo Golz.
And Florence's maiden name was?
Ryland.
Ryland, that's right. Now then, let's go to Thelma. Thelma, you were on once before.
That's right.
But we had you on for a different reason. I mean, not the fact that being a member of the Golz family is not a good enough reason, but we had you on because, and we'll let you tell that little story a little bit later on, but Thelma Meeks. And Thelma, tell us a little bit about where you live and where your family is and so forth.
Well, I live on Grandview, and I live with my daughter.
And who's your daughter, married name and all of that?
John Ridings.
John Ridings.
Edith Ann Ridings.
Edith Ridings. We have a lot of Ediths in your family, right?
Yes.
And we forgot to tell about your story. I mean, your family, of the Sonnensteins.
Oh, gosh, I don't know what to tell you about them.
No, I mean your own family.
Your own.
Your
We
children.
have 4
Irene
grandchildren.
and Wally and
And how many children did you have?
2.
2. And their names were, or are, rather?
Irene and Don.
Irene and Don. Okay, and are they in Wadsworth yet? They surely are. And we'll hear about those in a few minutes. Let's go to sibling number 3. Number 3. You're the third in line, right? Oh, I forgot, Thelma, you're how old?
I thought you just kept that.
How old are you? You forget?
I'm due to be 80 years old
80
in
years
December.
old. In December?
Uh-huh.
Okay, fine. That means that you were born in 1919. then,
Right.
Right. And December what?
December the 20th.
The 20th. Oh, Christmas baby almost.
Uh-huh.
Right. Now then, sister number 3.
Yes, sir.
And let's hear who you're married to and all of that.
I was married to Harold Cheney.
Harold Cheney, that's right. And the Cheney family is an old family in Wadsworth too, is it not?
Yeah, but that's a different family.
Oh, a different Cheney from the Cheney, yours is C-H-A-N-A-Y, there's a C-H-A-N-E-Y.
Yeah, there's Fern and
Right.
I could name them.
We ought to hear about
Ferndale
that.
and what?
I really wish we had some Cheneys too, because that old family is
That is
very
an
well.
old group.
Yes, it is. It's a very, very old group of people. And then we've had Jack on. He's the kind of the black sheep. He's the only male in the family. And when he was on before, he picked on his sisters, but now it's their turn. And they're going to pick on him. So Jack, you just prepare yourself for about 45 minutes of good picking ons here.
I can take it.
You can take it. So tell us a little bit about Jack.
Born on February 7, 1924, 75 years old,
75 years old,
retired from the City of Wadsworth,
right? Been there for years.
married with 3 kids,
Married whom?
Rosemary Doyle,
Rosemary Doyle. That's right.
and our kids are named Mike, Matt, and Melissa.
Right, and they're up in their 50s now too, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty close to it.
Pretty close to 50. Edith, how about you?
Oh, I'm fine.
You're fine.
Yes. I was born July 30th, 1926.
1926, so you're
And I-
73.
73, right.
That's right.
And I married Bob Miley.
Bob Miley.
They moved here in 1941.
The Mileys did,
Uh-huh.
from Reverend
Mileys
Miley's. Reverend Miley was the father here. Now, you were all born down where?
Akron, Ohio.
Akron.
Akron, but you came to Wadsworth when?
When
I was 4 years old, I remember when we came to Wadsworth.
Yeah, I think I
when
was too.
the Depression came, Dad lost everything.
In Akron. What was he doing?
He had a cement block factory with his brother, and he sold his half to his brother and was going to go into the chicken business, but the depression came, and it was he just lost everything, and so we had to move in with Grandma Ryland
Who lived in Wadsworth?
in Wadsworth.
Where in Wadsworth?
225 Berge Street.
Berge Street. And at that time, what was Berge Street like? Do you remember what Berge Street was like?
Dirt road.
Dirt road, that's right. And who were some of the neighbors down there when you moved in?
Oh, gosh, I can't remember that.
The O'Maras.
The O'Maras, right? That was Tom O'Mara
Uh-huh.
and his wife Mary.
Right.
And they had children, Joe and Alice, Lomi,
Ruth.
had several of them. And did you live right next door to them?
No, just kind of catty-cornered.
Catty-cornered on the
Up.
south side of the
Yeah,
road.
uh-huh.
Maud Hartman lived on one side, and then Kittinger.
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 But the
You remember
Hartmans,
her?
tell us about the
She-
Hartmans. Which Hartman was this?
Maud.
Maud was the mother.
Yeah.
And who were some of her children?
I don't think she had any children, did she?
Did the,
Oh, yeah, she had
Yes.
Helen. She married to the mayor of the town.
Yes,
Oh, that's right.
that's right. And which mayor did she marry? Do you remember?
You would ask me that. You know him. I can't think of it.
It'll come to us in a minute, I'm sure. This would have been in the early 20s, would it not?
Right,
In the early 20s.
Uh-huh.
I can't think of it right this very second. Can you remember who it was?
Do you remember who Helen Hartman married?
Well, we will in a few minutes. I can picture him right now because
I
I can
can
picture his
too.
picture in City Hall.
Burbeck.
Burbeck. Scott, that's right. That's right.
Burbeck.
Pardon me?
Barris Burbeck.
Burris Burbeck, yes,
Uh-huh.
right, that's right. I was picturing him, actually, as you said that, I was trying to picture his daughter's names, and we had the daughter's son-in-law on, or rather the daughter's husband on here. That would be John Swigert. He married one of the Burbeck girls. Now, as you remember the Depression as it came,
Absolutely.
what was it like for your whole family of 5 children after your father unfortunately lost everything that he had? Things were tough. Now tell us how tough it was. Who remembers the tough things and the things that you remember and then that still can bring tears to your eyes, I'm sure?
I remember Grandma's Susie Sonnenstein, and we were just little kids, and she and I, I think was about 4 years old, and she dressed up like Santa Claus, and we didn't know what we was going to have for Christmas or anything, but she brought us little outfits. You remember them polka dot outfits?
Mhm.
And
Now
I
this-
can remember that so
Susie
well.
Sonnenstein that you're talking about is
Is
related
her
to you,
aunt.
right?
Yeah.
Now who was that to you?
My husband's
Charlie.
aunt.
Charlie
Your husband's
was-
aunt. And your husband's mother and father were which Sonnensteins?
Joseph and Irene.
All right, and they did what in town?
I don't know.
Red Cross.
The Red Cross, maybe?
Yeah.
They were, as a matter of fact, I believe that Irene was probably one of the very first ones to be involved with the Red Cross. Is that correct? Do you remember her? Tell us a little bit about her.
I can't tell you very much about her because she died shortly after we were married.
Right, she died in the early 20s, wasn't it? Or mid-20s? When were you married?
Ooh. A long time ago.
A long time ago.
I can remember the day she got married.
And what was the date?
I can
So
too.
can
She left a note in the cupboard for Mom and Dad and said
Forgot
Don
about
and
that.
her ran away and got married.
And where did you run away to get married?
West Virginia.
At that time, West Virginia had no residency requirements for marriage, right? Do you remember the wedding at all?
No, it wasn't very much.
Not very much. How did you get there?
My husband drove his brother's car.
And what kind of car was that? I think that's very
Oh,
significant
gosh,
here.
I can't tell you.
Do you remember what kind of car it was? Now, the reason it was significant, the roads were very poor between here and West Virginia, and that was an old car, You wouldn't think that it would get that far. Do you remember Jack at all?
The only thing I can remember having is a Ford.
What model of Ford though?
Model T.
1932 or
Model
something.
T.
Yeah,
Or was it Model T Ford? You went all the way down Model T Ford. Imagine trying to do that. And they didn't have Route 77 as they do now. You would go down Route 21, which is a dirt road much of the way in those days. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Did you stop along the way?
several places.
Several places along the way, but you probably didn't stop at a motel because we didn't have motels in those days, did we?
Mm-mm. Stopped to eat.
You stopped to eat. And what did you do about sleeping arrangements and so forth?
We were back home by then.
You're You just went down, got married, and came right back home. What did mom and dad say when you came home with a
We
husband?
didn't tell anybody for about 2 or 3 months.
Not at all.
She come
No.
back and lived with us, and we didn't even know it.
And in other words, what you did then, your husband lived with his parents, and you lived with your parents. And in those days, there was none of this nonsense of going and living with your boyfriend or anything like that.
No, you wouldn't do that.
Oh, you wouldn't, absolutely not. You get shot. And then how did you finally remember that she was married? Edith, do you remember that?
No, I didn't even know I had an older sister until she ran away and got married. See, she's about 12 years older than I am.
So she was
So I
gone
don't-
out of the house before you were of memory age, is that
Right.
right?
Did you work?
Right.
You worked for Sunstein, didn't you?
What?
Yeah,
Did you used to work for Irene Sunstein?
Yeah.
Susie Sunstein.
For Susie, son, that's how she met Don.
That's why she wouldn't live with us.
I see. Okay, she worked with her. You worked with her. Oh, I didn't realize that. Now, when you got married, what year was it do you think it might have been? Have to be in the 30s, early 30s, right?
I would think so. When,
I can't remember.
can't you remember?
Well,
I
it was-
can't remember it.
but you remember the note, right?
Oh,
Yes.
I sure do.
And you were married. You were born in 1926.
6.
So
26.
you probably have to be 5 or 6 years old, at
Right.
least, so that would be 1930,
1930.
31, 32, or something in that area. And it was very difficult, and that was a very difficult
It's when
period.
we lived down on
I
Mill
know
Street.
my dad didn't like it at all.
He didn't care for it at all?
No, he didn't. He didn't want her to get married to, so young. So
How old were you when you got married?
17.
17. So you were born in 1914, right? So 14 would be 1931 when you were married, right? So you've been married for 68 years,
Right.
right? When did your husband
That's a long time, man.
pass away?
Oh, about 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Okay. Now, getting off this just a little bit, your memories of the South End in those days. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 clues. The Salvation Army, what did it do during the Depression?
We went with Captain Paul Huffman. He was the
Captain Paul Huffman.
right,
Tell
and
us about
Grace,
that.
and
Grace
Grace, and his
Huffman.
mother.
And he had a son, Paul Huffman.
Right.
And would you believe that I met up with him when I went to college?
Did you really?
He stood right next to me in a choir in which I sang, the a cappella choir. He stood right next to me. And one time I said to him, he said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Wadsworth, Ohio." I said, "Well, I am too, but not anymore."
Goodness sake.
Now, he is now also, well, that'd be some 60 years ago, wouldn't it? Where did the Salvation Army, I'm going to have the Salvation Army major come in and give a history of the Salvation Army because they were such an important part
Oh, they should.
of our city. But I bet you people can remember
Oh,
the
yes.
Salvation
But
Army. What
here I
they-
can remember my mother working down there to the Salvation Army to feed the people, the poor people, drying corn, canning corn, making quilts.
You used to dry all the
She was
Clothes.
always busy doing
Clo-
something.
And she made for the
And-
Red Cross.
And Captain Huffman, he came up to the house and he says, "Well, I want you to have this because you have done so much to help us out." And he gave her a blanket. I remember that just
And
so
I'll bet
well.
that blanket was badly needed at the time, was it not?
That's right.
Now, when you say went down there, where was the kitchen for the Salvation Army at the time?
In the basement
Of what?
well,
There used to be a building right next to where post stacks were. It's torn
Yeah.
down now.
but the first one was where
The lumber company,
Across
wasn't
the
it?
yeah,
street, wasn't
was
it?
across the
Yeah.
street from the
Right where
yeah.
there was a Dudas's barber shop.
Right.
Yeah.
Next door to that was this building.
Right.
And that was the
That's
Salvation
That
Army
was the
to begin
Salvation
with.
Army,
And that was in
and
the
they
basement.
lived upstairs in that.
They lived upstairs in that building. But there was a basement down
Right.
there, wasn't there? And how
Right.
big was the basement? Can you describe it? Can you describe the equipment and so forth? Was it a coal stove or a gas stove?
Oh, gee, I don't remember that.
I don't know,
Do you
but we
remember
used
anything
to
about it,
tend-
Edie?
No, I was pretty young.
Well, you were very
I don't remember
young.
too much about it.
I don't remember
She was
that
about 3 years old.
Yeah.
We used to go to that Salvation Army, and it was called the Band of Love, when we was in that basement. And it wasn't a very big basement,
Very
but we
small.
learned how to make flowers, crepe flowers, and things like that.
And you talked about the Band of
Captain
Love. Do you remember the
Sinatra.
Salvation Army Band at all down there?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we used to go uptown and play instruments, and with a circle, you know. And Captain Huffman was the leader, and he's the one that taught me how to play a French horn.
Well, Captain Huffman's son was an absolutely outstanding trumpet player.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt
Huffman
He
it.
was very good.
So
Matter of
is-
fact, he majored in trumpet at the university, or at the Baldwin Wallace, where I was at the time. Do you remember anything else about the South End, which was so significantly South End? And how about the movies and things like that on the side of the? You remember those things?
Well, I remember my dad didn't have a car at that time, and we lived over on L Street.
L Street.
Do you remember where
Oh,
L
I
Street
surely
is,
do.
by the lumber company
Yes,
there?
mhm.
And then they had the railroad tracks. Well, we'd
Two
sit
railroad
on the
tracks.
bank. We'd sit on the bank there, and the choo-choo train go by. The engine, the last part of the engine would throw us peppermints.
The last
On
part
the
of the
hill.
engine would throw you peppermint sticks. And then
Yeah.
tell us about L Street and who was living there, and tell us about that big house. Do you remember the big house on L
Oh,
Street?
yeah, the big red brick.
The Breck Rig? Who lived there when you were there?
I have no idea.
Do you remember, Thelma?
I'm trying to think.
The which? The red brick house?
The red brick house.
The red
Well,
brick
I
house.
remember William Thompson and his family.
Right, but that was many years later.
Yeah, but I
Who built the house, do you know?
Peter Basco?
Well, we think that maybe he did. We're not positive. And I was hoping that if anyone knows who built that house, we really would like to know. We've had varying stories about who built the house. And I think it'd be nice if we all knew exactly who it was. Now, we're talking about a railroad track. What do you remember about a railroad track, Thelma?
Well, I'd been in Wadsworth just a week or so, and Grandma told my Uncle Kenny to take care of me and see that
Kenny Ryland.
Ryland, and to see that I got safely to school and back.
And that was at Franklin School at the time,
That's right.
Mhm.
And so I had to follow him, and he went across the street towards Fenton and Leatherman's,
The grocery store.
the grocery store, and a car came along and knocked me down, and Peter Basco saved me from the train and took me into the station. And
You were not hit by the train then,
no,
as a result
no,
of his
I would have
grabbing-
been. I would have been mincemeat.
in a matter of seconds, too.
That's right.
Because there was no way the train could have stopped.
And when we, do you remember the 80s?
Oh, surely.
Well, after Kenny and I left the station, they let me go, you know, and I had to walk home, and I got kind of dizzy, so he says, well, let's go up here to 80s. And
Paul 80 and
Paul 80 and
Really?
Catherine and,
Catherine 80.
uh-huh. And,
They're all gone, too, aren't they now?
yes, they are.
Every one of them is?
Pardon me?
Are they all gone?
Yeah.
Yep, I think so.
I think Dorothy's still living.
Is Dorothy living?
I think so.
Well, I'd love to get her on the program if we can get
Yeah,
her. Where
I
is
think
she?
she
Do you know?
lives in Rittman.
Rittman?
Uh-huh.
Well, if anyone
But I don't
sees
know
her,
her
I'd love to
married
talk.
name.
Yeah,
Snell.
that's Snell? Dorothy
The
Snell?
last I know it was Snell. I don't know.
Snell?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can get a hold of her. I'd love to.
Yeah,
I'd like
she
to have her on
married
the
him.
program because the 80s go back many
Oh,
years,
yes.
right?
They were very English, too.
Yes, they were. Reddish hair, well, kind of reddish hair.
Yeah.
And stocky. They're stocking. Well, the boys, not the girls. The
Right.
boys were stocking.
Right.
And the 80s then took you in, is that it?
Yeah, they took she did, you know.
And where were the 80s living at the
They
time?
lived on, I think it was Rainbow.
Rainbow Street?
Well, no,
No.
Mechanic.
No, Mechanic Street.
With a
what
mechanic
is it?
street.
Mechanic Street.
Mechanic Street.
Mechanic
Yeah,
Street.
you're right.
The second
Back house in a yellow house behind.
right.
It's
that
blue
building.
now.
Yeah, it's gone
blue
now, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it was a nice big yellow house too.
Yes.
Mechanic Street at one time was a very, very nice little street down through
Yes,
there.
it was.
I forgot all about that.
And what do you remember about Mechanic Street? Do you remember?
I don't even know where Mechanic Street.
Oh,
I really don't.
yes.
Well, she was
Mechanic
too
Street is the
little.
one that immediately
You were just a
south of the
little
railroad
girl.
track, and it goes east and west. Is that right? Do you remember it at all? What did boys used to do down on Mechanic Street when you were growing up, Jack? Of course, you've been such a good boy, you wouldn't do anything.
I never did anything bad.
No, that's right. I remember that. I had forgotten that you never did anything bad. They used to put spikes on the railroad
On the
track,
railroad
Oh, yeah.
track.
Let the train run over,
and then what would happen?
cut them right in half most of the time.
Well, that or make a knife out of it or something, but just flatten it out
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
well. And they would do that, but you never did anything like that, did you?
No, I can say I never did.
wouldn't think so. I
You
wouldn't
wouldn't do
think
nothing
so.
like that, would you?
No, heavens.
Now, when the 80s lived there, what was Mechanic Street like?
Well, it was
There
like,
was a couple of houses.
yeah,
there
there was
were
a
two
couple of
houses.
houses and a garage was there because I took my car there to paint.
Mm-hmm.
And on the rest, that's all further I can remember.
That's all it was. That's as far as it went.
Yeah.
Now it goes back a little farther because DH&L has some, and they're now paving Mechanic Street.
And isn't that where Joe
Easy
Bender?
Miraglotti used to have a welding shop.
Right, that's right.
back
Isn't
there.
that where Joe Bender started his restaurant? His first one?
What was his name?
Joe Bender.
Joe Bender.
Yeah.
He started a restaurant
in
down
that
there.
restaurant. Down below the 80s. I mean,
Is that
you know,
right? Now that's
right
the
there
first
under-
we've heard that. That's the good
It was
news.
sort of like almost
Yeah.
underground.
Do you
Yeah.
remember that restaurant at all? No, you don't remember the restaurant. That's where Joe Bender had his restaurant.
yeah, Joe Bender.
I didn't know that. I did not know that. Now that's a piece of
Yes,
history
you
that
did.
we really,
To
really
think
need
of
to
it.
know about. So how long was he there? Do you remember?
Oh golly, no, I don't remember.
Did he own the house? Do you know?
I think he lived in part of that house.
Did he?
Yeah, I think he owned it.
Yeah.
Eventually Chuck Cale took it over. That's
Chuck.
Joe Bender's nephew.
Nephew, right?
Right.
Charlie Cale.
Yeah. But I think they sold it now. The family don't own it.
They don't own that at all anymore. No. Getting away from Mechanic Street and where you were living, which is on Berkey Street, do you remember what kinds of factories were down at the end of Berkey Street when you were growing up? Do you remember that? Those factories?
Oh,
Chemetex.
I remember
Chemetex.
they didn't have any sidewalks on the Injector Hill. We was walking up that in the dirt, remember? But we lived at the south end of town, but you know, when we come uptown, you had to walk in the dirt. There wasn't
No
sidewalks.
sidewalks at all.
No
There was no
sidewalks.
sidewalks.
And when you say no sidewalks, you mean no sidewalks,
no
or any place to
sidewalks.
walk. You
That's
walked
right.
on what, grass?
Well, then they built wooden sidewalks up the.
Do you remember
Yeah.
when they built the wooden sidewalk? Mm-hmm. Do you remember who built it?
Oh,
Do you remember any of the carpenters who built it? It was built by the city, but we've been trying to find that out. Someone told us about the wooden sidewalks,
let's see.
but we would love to know anyone who might have built the sidewalks. Now we do know that some of the streets in Wadsworth were built by actually the person who laid the brick on Highland Avenue was Tony Chupa. Now we do know that because
Yeah.
we had his daughter, and she told us about the fact that he.
Do you remember when they had that little market down there
Yes,
on the
I do.
corner?
Yes, right.
Walnut and Main?
No, it was on
Water.
No, it was on Water,
Water
and
Street.
East,
Yeah.
corner of Water and East Street,
Yeah.
and their telephone number was 2204. I can remember. Edith, you're being very quiet over here. You have so
Well,
many things to
that
talk
was
about.
before my time. I don't remember much about that.
She come along too late for me.
Edith,
I was only 3 months old when we moved to Wadsworth.
when you moved to Wadsworth.
3 months old.
I'm 5 years younger than you. I remember them.
Well, good for you.
Good for me, she says. Good for me. Edith, tell us a little bit about your background, as your memories, because you were kind of in the mid-40s in school, weren't you?
Mm-hmm.
And what was happening then? I mean, the boys were gone and all that.
Well,
But,
during the war.
During the war, did you have any boyfriends that went to
Oh,
the
yes,
service?
Bob Miley.
That was a good answer. When did you start going with Bob Miley? When he came to town in 1940?
Well, they came about 1940, 41.
Mm-hmm.
We went together our junior and senior year.
And did you pick him out right away, or did he pick you out right away?
I certainly didn't pick him out right away.
You did not pick him out right away. Now that's self-survival right there. He picked you out.
I think.
He picked you out. And was the fact that he was the minister's son really important to you, or was that just kind of a
No.
sideline?
That was just a sideline.
You just liked him because he was Bob Miley.
Well, we were in the band together.
Right.
We did a lot of things together.
Right.
Uh-huh.
But not too many things together, because you weren't allowed to do things together in those days, were you?
No, that's true.
That's right.
That's true.
Besides, you had some sisters here who would
They watched me.
They
yes.
watched you very carefully.
Very
That's right. They watched her.
Pop was pretty strict, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And
Yep,
rightfully
very
so. Look what he produced. I mean, 5 wonderful people. What is your earliest memory of Wadsworth?
Gosh, I can't begin to think.
Well, when you worked for the Mrs. Stonestein, what did you do for her?
About anything she asked me to.
And why did you work? Was she ill?
Sort of.
What was her problem?
Movement. She had trouble walking.
She had a very difficult time walking. Matter of fact, toward the end, she couldn't walk at all, could she?
No.
No, and you took care of her
She
pretty
had
well.
special shoes.
Right. And her husband, what was he like?
Joe.
Nice
Joe.
guy.
Nicest man of the
I used
world.
to sell Liberty magazine, and I used to deliver it there. And I had 69 customers.
How much did you make for that Liberty magazine with 69
5 cents is what the cost.
5 cents. And how much did you get of that 5 cents?
I think I got 2.5 cents, something out of it.
So,
And then a bunch of coupons. I had coupons like you wouldn't believe to buy roller skates, watches.
and did you?
Yeah,
And they were good too.
banks.
And they were good.
Yeah.
Jack, you were how old when you came here?
2.
2. Now,
She was 4.
I
had to
was
be
4,
you
he
were
had
4,
to be 2.
and he was 2. Now, at age 2, were you kind of the spoiled of the family because
No,
you-
that came later.
that came later.
When I was in high school, Florence and Thelma worked at the match company.
Uh-huh.
And
I worked 13 and a half
Thelma
years
had a
there.
car. I used to get up in the morning, take them to work, bring the car back home, use the car anytime I wanted to, and they paid me for this. That's how I got my spending money when I was in high school.
By just taking them to work.
Yeah, every morning.
They didn't pay you very much, though, I bet.
I don't remember what it was, but it
Oh.
was enough back then.
It was enough to keep you going back
Yeah.
then. And do you remember working at the mat shop at all? You didn't work at the mat
No,
shop.
I didn't.
You always worked for Mrs. Sonestein. And then at age 17, you got married. And where did you live after you told the whole world that you were married? Where did you live then?
Akron.
Akron.
And how long did you live in Akron before you came back to Wadsworth?
About a year.
About a year. Then you came back to Wadsworth. And what did you do after you came back to Wadsworth?
Gee, I don't know.
You moved in with Don's parents.
What?
You moved in with Don's parents.
Oh, yeah.
You moved in with Don's parents. Where did Don's parents live at the time?
Highland Avenue.
Highland Avenue.
Highland?
Oh, yeah.
Highland.
How far up on Highland? And the reason I'm asking, go ahead.
3rd block.
3rd block,
I would think 375 was the number.
375. Now, how many blocks were there on Highland at that time?
I think that was it.
It didn't go much past then.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
it.
that
That
was
was
it.
it.
Come
There are
to
3
think
blocks
of it.
on Highland. Now it goes all the way up to 261, then crosses 261, and then continues all the way up to almost to 76, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, almost to 76. Not quite, but just about a stone's throw from 76. But Highland Avenue at that time was, it just ended. And then there's a little bit of a dirt path there that went, what was the number again?
375.
375.
Yeah.
And south of you, on 359, who lived at 359? Who are some of your neighbors? I should ask that question.
One of them was Dr. Etter's daughter, May Etter.
May?
Hmm
May Etter.
I think her maiden name was Roar.
May Rohr?
Mhm.
Maybe.
Was that, would that have been the May Rohr who, no, it wouldn't be, because that Rohr was a Methodist, and Dr. Etter was a Lutheran, wasn't he? Yeah. Who were some of the other neighbors that you remember there?
I don't remember them.
Was Ed Eiselhart there at that time?
There wasn't anybody across the street.
And how about right south of you, toward town? Was Ed Eiselhart there at that time? Remember Ed Eiselhart?
Oh, they were down a couple houses.
Couple houses, 359, I believe, right. And beyond that, and what about the, help me, not Young's,
Eberhard?
were the Eberhards there?
I think Bill Eberhard lived sort of close to where Lucille used to live until they built the new home.
Bill Everhard, remember him there? He lived, what, 2 or 3 houses south of you also?
The big brick house.
The big brick house, right. And then the next couple houses, who lived there?
Gosh, I can't tell you.
Of course, they've moved away, and some of them are already gone, and all of that. Yeah, but you remember that. Now, do you remember? Did you continue working after you got married, or did you stop working and just stayed home and took care of your kids?
Stopped working.
And where did your husband work then?
Gosh, I can't remember.
Do you remember where he worked, Edie?
I remember in Seville. He worked there
Yeah,
in
he worked in
Seville.
the foundry.
He works at the Orville Bronze and Aluminum when you got married, I think.
He
You lived on
I
Highland.
worked in the foundry
worked in the foundry. That's right.
for
Now-
Bob Carney.
Pardon?
For Bob Carney.
Bob Carney.
Bob Carney, yeah.
Now, Bob Carney was not from Wadsworth, though, was he?
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, he was one. He married
At
his
one
son
time, they moved to Wadsworth, but they lived in Orville.
Wasn't
They
he
lived
married to Irene
Eileen.
Sunstein's daughter?
Yeah.
Eileen
Yeah.
Sunstein.
They moved to Wadsworth later on. Then they lived east of town, on the east, when they came to town, the Carneys.
I can't remember where they lived.
I might be wrong. But we'll find out as soon as this program is aired. I'll make a phone call.
Yeah.
I enjoy those phone calls so much, and some of people get mad at me. Say, "Don't you remember this?" Well, if I would remember it, I would have said it.
Right.
But you know, that's what this is all about. We're trying to figure out, you know, when what is accurate, what is not accurate. Now then, did you stay there on Highland Avenue all the time that you were married? When did you move from there?
Ooh. We moved to Seville.
So we moved up.
Uh-huh,
Did you go to Lima from there?
I thought you
First, you went to Orville.
That's what I thought.
Yeah,
yeah.
you moved to Orville.
Yeah.
And I came down there to stay with you for
That's right.
about 3 or 4 weeks, remember? And it was close at the time when Dawn was, I'm not Dawn.
That's right.
Irene.
Irene was going to be born.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember?
I remember that Orville house, they had 72 peach trees.
72
Yeah.
Peach Street.
That used to be my job in summertime to take care of that. They had a goat one time too. And,
That goat.
Yeah, they milked it for the milk. One day I take it out every morning and stake it out, you know, and I put it out by a wild cherry tree one day. That damn goat ate them cherries and died.
Ate the cherries. They usually eat the bark around the tree.
Must have been rotten
Ate
cherries,
and
huh?
died.
Died. Made too many of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do
Probably.
you remember the goat that you had?
Oh, yeah. She wanted to get rid of it.
And why did you have a goat? For the milk?
Supposedly, yeah.
The
Terrible. I didn't like it.
The milk. It's supposed to be very healthy milk because
That's what John's
it's
uncle said
not-
when he bought the goat for us.
that's why he bought the goat. My parents had goats for a while because my brother had some kind of an intestinal problem. My second oldest brother, and they well, of course, not to this day. My parents are dead, but they claimed that cured his intestinal problems.
Yeah.
People did that. We're going to have to get moving on this because we'll run out of time. But do you remember when you graduated from high school, or when you went to school, high school? And did you finish school then? Because people in those days really didn't go beyond
Right.
8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, maybe.
Well, they had the feeling that the girls didn't need to be graduates.
That's right.
It's just
That's
the
what
boys.
That's
Dad
way
thought.
that's way Dad thought.
And most men at that time thought that. And for those women livers out there, don't complain about that because that's just the way it was.
That's right.
And that's the way it was. And I suspect that you had all three of you. You were the only girl who finished school.
Well,
Well-
and Jack.
Well, Jack, but
and
the
I
girl- the
graduated.
boys were
Well,
allowed to
Jack
finish
was a
school.
boy.
Right.
Yeah, they were allowed to finish school.
And he
I was the first
but
one to graduate from high
Edie
school.
wanted to quit school, and I got really mad at her. And I said, "Oh no, you're not going to." And
You sure it was me?
Yes.
Because I didn't.
yes, you did. You said you were going to quit school. Something happened.
That was Florence. That wasn't me. Because
Well,
I went
anyhow.
straight
Edith
through.
was one of our best students in school.
I went
Yeah.
through straight through.
Well,
She's
you
one of
were
our best-
mad this one day, and you talked about it. And I says, "Oh no, you're not." I mean, you just threatened, I suppose.
And you took care of that.
Yes, I said to her, I says, "You're going to finish school. I don't care what comes or goes."
And that's what you did, right?
I had a plan to.
You
Absolutely.
bet. Now then, when did you and Bob get married?
On 1947.
47. 2 years after you got out of school.
He was in the service right after we
That's right.
graduated, yeah.
Do you remember who went and got your wedding outfit with you? Where we went to get it?
No, I don't remember much
You
about
don't
that.
remember that?
Uh-uh.
We got on the bus in Wadsworth, went to Akron, when Fetterman's was in business at that time, and you seen this outfit that you liked real well, and you got that. You'd worked at the mat shop.
Was that her wedding dress?
Yeah.
And you got it at Fetterman's.
I guess I did.
Yes, you did.
I really don't remember.
You don't remember that? Oh, I remember that, honey, as clear as day. I seen that
You
you
remember
had
your
a
wedding,
hat
Jack?
and gloves and pocketbook.
Yeah,
Jack remembers his wedding.
May 29th, 1947.
47.
Well, there were three of us married in 1 year.
Yeah.
I married first,
Uh-huh.
and then Jack, and then Thelma.
You were all three married in 1947.
47.
Well, you were older then when you got married. Of course.
Well, that was my second husband.
Right.
My first husband, I was married in January, and he,
I remember that you had said
Right.
that he had passed on.
Right.
You know, that was so sad too. It was just a sad thing. Well, I got married with my first Medicare check.
Oh, really?
Well, I was 32 when I was married. I was 32 when I was married, but not quite Medicare, but that. Now, as you look back over this whole life, all of you stayed in Wadsworth. I mean, essentially. Yes, you moved a little bit. Didn't you move out of state at one time, or out of the?
Went to Lima.
Oh, what, to Lima? The reason that I remember that, my parents came from Lima to Wadsworth in the early 20s, and very few people in Wadsworth ever went to Lima, and somehow I remember this one family moving to Lima, and my parents picking that up.
The foundry moved to Lima.
That's right.
So
So that's when they moved to Lima. That's right. And you weren't there very, very long, were you?
what? Oh, I don't know. A couple years.
See, my parents moved to Lima in 1920, and they were with the railroad. Well, then the railroads had a huge, I guess strike or whatever, 1923, 24. Do you remember that at all? I don't remember it because I wasn't born. But anyway, they had a huge strike and just a real mess, and they weren't working, and of course you had to work, and things were not very good. So they moved to Akron to the rubber companies. Well, my father did not like the rubber companies at all. He couldn't stand the smell and so forth. So they moved out to the, quote, farm in Wadsworth. And the reason they moved there was that's where the streetcar was, and they'd go back and forth for a nickel to Barberton, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Of course, then 1934, the streetcar went defunct, and they had to walk or find another way to work. But as you remember the family being together, I guess you are unique because all of you stayed right here, and your families stayed right here, essentially. Now, some of your families have gone, elsewhere, but you stayed right here. You've never had to go far to see each other. Now, not to get too terribly personal, but all of you, as far as Wadsworth is concerned, always got along very, very well together.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell us about how that...
Once in a while we'd have fights and arguments. Over bobby pins, do you remember that?
Well, that's something to fight about. My heavens, if you have bobby pins, you need to have a good, healthy fight.
She claimed them, and I said they were mine, and we argued back
That
and forth
would take
about
care of it.
bobby pins.
But not after you were married, though.
No.
No. But after you were married, how did your families get together? I mean, you had what, 4 kids? Three.
Three.
3 kids.
Three.
You have
3.
3, yes, 6.
I have 5.
Okay, you're the one who had more children. I knew one of you had more children than the other ones. So that's 6, 5, 11.
I had 4.
So 11, 4, 15.
I took after my mom.
Oh, is that right? They had 5 kids
They
too.
had
16 kids. Did you all get together on Sundays or some other day of the week at each other's houses, or were there too many people all together?
Well, not when we lived here in Wadsworth. I mean, when we got married, we
didn't see each other that
You
much.
lived up in Youngstown
yeah.
for a while.
For a little while.
Austintown.
Austintown.
Yeah.
And then I came back home and lived while he was out on the road with the oil company. And I was 27 before I left home, really.
27. Wow. Now 18, the day after they're 18, they get an apartment, even if it's across the street.
Yeah, really.
But we all stayed at our own homes until we were married and left. And
It never dawned on me to
no
move
one
away.
did. No one did. No, and you were the youngest one, and you would have never thought of leaving
Not
home.
till I got married.
Not until you got married. Even if you're 50 years old, you stayed at home. Now, when you worked at the match shop, you see, the two of you worked at the match shop, and you worked at the match shop,
Yes,
didn't you, for a
I
while?
worked there.
Just who were some of the people who worked with you at the match shop that we are still Wadsworth people?
Well, Helene Eiselhart,
Eiselhart.
she was a proofreader.
Now that was not Ed's wife. That was
Pete.
Pete's wife.
Pete's
Yes,
wife.
Pete's wife.
Yeah. And then remember, we couldn't remember Bill Hildebrand's
Yes.
name.
Bill Hildebrand.
Bill Hildebrand. He was our boss.
Yeah,
That's
he
right.
was our
Bill Hildebrand was the boss. That's right. We couldn't remember that when I interviewed you the last time. That's right.
right.
And who were some of the other people who were there?
Well, there's Sadie Police.
Police, yeah.
Connie.
Celia Landry.
Landry and Connie Police.
Angie Miskell.
Angie
Rose
Miskell.
Doyle.
Which Doyle?
Do you know her?
Who?
Rose Doyle.
Rose Doyle. Yeah, you
Rose,
remember
I
her,
know
don't you? Do you remember
She
her, Jack?
worked it.
You remember her pretty well, don't you? Yeah.
I remember her too.
Well, you didn't meet her before he met her, but you knew who she was.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think when she married your brother?
Well, I like the idea.
You liked that idea.
Uh-huh,
So
you
did Jack.
introduced him.
Did you, Jack?
Right.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
been rough. But
I introduced
It's been
them
rough.
to the
Yeah, rough for Rose.
Been rough.
And who were some of the other ones that you met then when you were at the?
I remember Loma Gossage. She was one of my
Oh
best
my
friends.
heavens! Yes, and she had a son, huge
Gene.
Right.
Who was that?
Right.
Gene Gossage.
Loma Gossage.
Loma Gossage.
They used to run on her quite a bit, didn't you?
because
She was one of my best friends.
And Loma's gone, isn't she?
Yes.
Yeah, it was really a tragedy there. Now, she was not. Where did Gene get his size? How big was he? You probably announced.
He was probably
He
6'3",
was-
6'4".
What did he weigh?
250 pounds.
250 pounds, all muscle.
Oh, yeah. He played pro football with Philadelphia
Yes,
Eagles.
he did.
Yeah.
And you probably announced for him, didn't you?
Yeah, I imagine back then, yeah.
How many years did you announce for the football games?
30, 35.
You still do it?
No.
Who does
I
it
quit.
now?
I don't know.
He's retired.
I quit about 5 years ago.
And that was it. Never went back.
I go watch the games, but I don't go.
I used to enjoy you because you never got excited.
No. Just as calm.
Yeah.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Gene Gossage, the ball carrier. That was about it. But you knew what was going on. You knew what was going on. Who else do you remember down there? How long did you work down there, Edith?
Not very long. About
Do you
2
remember when you
years.
hurt your foot?
About 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What was
Long
that,
time.
Thelma? What did you say
When
here?
he was playing football in
Oh.
school, he hurt his foot and he was off of it for
Hurt my
quite a while.
Hurt your ankle
And the
in
In
ankle.
8th grade, yeah.
the 8th grade. So you were okay by high school then,
Oh,
weren't you?
Yeah.
Because you played all through high school. I can remember that very, very well. And then after you went to from the mat shop, where'd you go, Edith?
I got married, you know,
Got married to.
and I worked 2 years, and then I was pregnant and I left
And where did you work for 2 years?
at the match.
At the match, both. and
First,
then-
I worked at Ben Franklin.
I was going to say that I remember you when you were in the candy department. there
Right,
at
I
Ben
was very
Franklin.
good at that.
You were good at that. Yes, yes, I can
Used to
still
go
remember.
down and sample it with Mr. Elsass.
You would go down and sample with Mr. Elsass.
Yes.
That was good candy too. Unfortunately, it was right smack as you walked in the door on the right-hand side there,
Right.
on the north side of the store, and they would roast those peanuts. Oh my heavens, I can still smell those peanuts. That was good. That was good eating in those days, right? And who else was working with Elsasses at the time besides Mrs. Day and
Oh, there was Dorothy Britzhart.
Britzhart? Now,
And
she's not a Wadsworth girl though. I
well,
think she came from
she's
Wadsworth.
here now. She came from Florida. And now she's living here in Wadsworth.
Is she really? Oh. And who are some of the other people?
Helen Good.
Helen Good. From where? Seville?
No, from here.
Helen Good. I'm drawing a blank on Helen Good.
Her husband ran the supermarket.
Oh, okay. Good. Sparkle Market.
Sparkle
okay.
Market.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Wayne
Yes.
Good.
Wayne Good. Yes. Okay. Now, now I got the picture. Okay. I had forgotten temporarily who that. Oh, yes. Now I know who
Right.
it is. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Good Sparkle Market. Right. And who were some of the other people there?
The only one I remember mostly was Mrs. Elsass. She worked with me a lot.
She was a beautiful person.
Oh,
And
she
so
was a
he.
beautiful person.
Yeah, she was, what a wonderful person. Oh, the whole Elsass family. I mean,
Oh, yes.
They were just great
Oh,
people.
yes.
They were an institution here in Wadsworth, yeah. You worked somewhere, when you were growing up too, where was it?
Match company.
I mean,
He
when
worked
you
at the
were-
match shop.
Before
a few-
that?
How
Before
long
that.
did you work there?
About 15 years.
Yeah.
Before
I used
that,
to work for the
Printer.
county,
for the county.
mowing weeds in the summertime.
That's right. And do you realize that as a result of that, you probably have a pension coming from the state of Ohio?
Huh?
Yep.
So they
I
say.
never applied for that.
No, you can. You can make yourself a lot of money because it goes back from the day that you started.
Oh,
I
I'd
think
be
we get paid
darned.
$1 an hour or something
Doesn't make
like
a bit of difference. They'll take it all the way back to there. You
I'll
want
have
to
to
try to look into that.
I get it from the state of Ohio from my job at the
That's
recreation
right.
department.
That's right. Exactly. And you can put those together.
Yeah, I might be a millionaire, huh?
Well, you might be, and if that's the case, Lucille, he owes us something, doesn't he? You bet he does. Lucille, you've been very quiet over there. I need to have you tell us a little bit more about your own family. Now we're going to go through the families now, where your kids are, and whom they married, and all of that.
Nothing very exciting.
Well, listen, the fact that you have 2 kids here in Wadsworth,
My
are they?
daughter, she's a teacher. She's been teaching for 35 years.
And what is her name?
Irene.
Irene, but what is her maiden?
Moon.
Moon. Irene Moon. That's right. She teaches Spanish here in Wadsworth. 35 years. Good heavens! I remember when she first started.
She knows everybody.
Oh yes, isn't that something? Now she was married late in life, wasn't she? Because she was Irene Sonestein for years and years and years. She is now what, 59 years old, 58 years old, 59.
Probably.
59 years old.
I don't know.
I think.
Yes.
I think
She went to Ohio State, didn't she?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think
Pardon me?
she's 59.
59, right. She was born 1940, as I remember. Correct? And how about anybody else in your family?
Well, I have a son, Don, and I don't know what he does.
What Don does?
Good.
What Don does? Your son? Is he here in Wadsworth
he's
now?
insurance.
He has an insurance company.
Insurance.
Yeah. That's, well, you know, they change sometimes, and sometimes we can't remember what they all do. That's right. Every parent calls his kid by another name sometimes. We all do that. Now, how about yours, Thelma?
About what?
Your children, your family.
Oh, well, Richard, well, my oldest son got killed and
Yes.
electrocuted.
Yes.
And my second son, Richard, he works at Clamco now, but he did work for
Marathon.
Marathon for years. And they let him go when he was 40 years old. And then my
Downsized or upsized or outsized or whatever. Excised.
and
All those big companies do that.
yeah, and my daughter, she's a visiting nurse.
Who does she
And-
work for? I think it's interesting to know who she works for.
She did work for what was her name? Anyhow, but she's left them because they lost out, I guess, or something happened. And she works for.
Well, the company was moved out of Medina County. Yeah.
And but Edith travels quite a bit. She goes to Worcester and Orville and all that
All around.
with this other company. I don't know who it is, so.
Well, they have they change names every other week.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead.
and then there's my youngest son. I'm always missing him. He works at the hospital in Findlay, Ohio. He's
In
a
Findlay.
maintenance.
He is one of the ones who does not live in the Wadsworth area.
That's right.
Right. And how about all of your kids? Your 5. Where are they?
Okay, starting with my oldest one, Chick. Chick. He's a minister
And where?
in New Hope, Ohio,
And that's down in
down by Millersburg.
down by Millersburg. Yeah.
Okay.
Momish country.
My second one,
And what denomination?
Methodist.
Methodist.
Yeah. And then my daughter Jerry works in a plant. She's been there for about 10, 11 years
Where?
now. At Elsco.
Alsco.
Yeah, down home in
Yes,
Holmesville.
right.
And then Darcy. There's my other one.
Darcy's over there, and she's right
Yeah.
here in Wadsworth, right?
Oh, she works at the Gambier College. She's trained for biologist,
Gambier.
and she's had a graduation. She's a high-ranking person. And then who we got next? Oh, Hal.
Hal.
He works at the post office in Columbus. He's been there 12 years now, and he's the supervisor for the union. And my baby, which is 43 years old,
Your baby is 43.
she's worked at the same factory 21 years. She just celebrated 21 years.
And where was
in
that?
there. In Kilbuck.
They're all down in Wayne County, or in Wayne and
Mostly.
Holmes County.
Yeah.
That's a nice place in the world to live.
No, wait a minute. Not Holmes County. She's in Knox County, and
No.
we're in the Knox County. And my two of them are in Holmes County, and 2 of them are
Holmes.
in Knox County.
I see. Okay, but
3 of them
down
are
that
in Knox County.
direction.
Yeah.
Our one son lives in Nyack, New York, which is right outside New York City, And you can't even park anywhere. You can't park in the street if you have to move your car every other day and all this other kind of thing. And you can't move. I keep telling them that I want them to start to move down to Kidron. So,
Kidron.
Oh, Kidron.
so you can park your car anywhere and you have a little bit of
Yes, you
little
can.
room. Oh, I just don't like to be cooped up like that.
They have still a little freedom.
Oh, they surely do. Jack, tell us about your family. We have just a couple of minutes left, so we'll have
My oldest son, Mike, works for a racing team, Summit Racing in Talmadge.
is that Summit Racing?
Yeah.
Yes.
And my son Matthew is the assistant comptroller at Barberton Citizen Hospital.
Ah, really?
And my daughter Melissa is a registered nurse at Barberton.
So they're all around here as well.
Yep, they all live here in town.
Right here. And Edith?
Pamela Ann, she works at Clamco. She's been there quite a few years, about 15 years. And Sunday Sue is the second daughter, and she works for Worcester College. And
What does she do for Worcester College?
I couldn't tell you what she does, but she's been there quite a while.
It means that she's doing a good job.
She's doing a fine job. And our son Tim is home with us right now.
He's with you right now.
He had been in California for about 20 years.
But now he's with
with us.
That's good.
No place like home.
No place like home. The Golz family started as a transplant to Wadsworth so many years ago. And if you were to add up all the years that you people have been in Wadsworth, it would be very well close to 150 years right now. You came in 20?
During the Depression, that's all I can
1922.
say.
1922.
I'm born 1922.
1922, so that
Mine's
means that
4,
you've been
so
around for
that-
about 78 years. And you multiply that by,
I'm 77.
you're
Don't
70.
make me older than
Okay,
I am.
77 years. And you multiply that by the 5 years that you've been here. Well, you haven't been here all those 77 years, but it's well over 200 years, maybe close to 300 years altogether.
Isn't that something?
But that's not the number of years that Wadsworth is so proud and so pleased to have had the Golz family. It's the quality and what the contributions of this wonderful family, from teaching to driving buses to working in the mat shop to marrying wonderful people and having a good, strong relationship, and unfortunately giving of a son in a horrible accident and all of those kinds of things. And you yourself, having been saved by an immigrant from Hungary who just happened to be there at the right time, pulled you away from the train.
Right.
You have a legacy here which really has made the history of Wadsworth a miraculous kind of thing. I mean, the miraculous savings of your life, the fact that you people have expanded, and every single one of you is making a strong contribution to the city of Wadsworth, and Wadsworth is very pleased. And I am particularly pleased because you are the only family in Wadsworth in which in which 5 of the 5 children are all still living. And I think that is probably a record. And if it's not, I'll hear about it as soon as we hear it. Because someone will call me and say, no, we have 6 and they're all living. And if we do have that, we're going to get all 6 of those people in and bring them here to the program. Thank you very, very much for being our guest today. It has been a wonderful privilege for me, and certainly the city of Wadsworth shares this joy with me in saying thank you to the Golz family.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.